And we are live, or at least I'm live. This is Ed Dyer, and this is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. And joining me tonight are, just getting me tonight, at least at the beginning. Hopefully some minions will wander in later. But don't worry, we got some amazing science to go over. And I'm going to start off with our friend, the dwarf planet Pluto. Pluto not getting much respect. Poor little dwarf planet. But NASA's New Horizon spacecraft, and I'm going to screen share with you. There we go. And on the plains, there you got a picture of the plains of Sputnik Planum. They look smooth and fresh after 4 billion years in the deep freeze of the outer solar system. But nearby highlands are saturated with impact craters. And this is the welcome that New Horizons spacecraft got to the world. They call it the Welcome, Weird, and Wonderful Pluto. The most amazing part of this story is the fact that there is a story, that we have a spacecraft that is so close, so far out there and so close to Pluto, it can give you these pictures. That's freaking amazing. 8 months after the probe buzzed past the dwarf planet, mission scientists have published the most detailed studies yet of Pluto's unexpected varied terrain and its motley moons. There's a name for a rock band, the Motley Moons. This is lead author Jeffrey Moore, a NASA Ames Research Center. And on Sputnik Planum, they found nitrogen, methane, carbon monoxide continually cycling between ice and gas at temperatures of minus 243 to minus 223 centigrade. Now, that word cycle, that's a very cruel word when you're talking about an object in space, because you think of, in the past, many may have thought of planet as being some frozen lump of ice. It is not. It is a dynamic planet. There's stuff happening in it. Let's see, at the Sputnik Planum's height, 3 to 4 kilometers above the surrounding uplands, may create conditions that collect these volatile chemicals from Pluto's thin atmosphere. We got reactions going on. The result is soft craters composed largely of nitrogen ice that cover a bedrock of much harder water ice and help keep the plains smooth. This water ice is less dense than the nitrogen, so in some places, chunks of bedrock float on the glaciers. You got floating bedrock. Let's see, other areas remain in an almost primordial state. The eastern part of the dark area called Chutluhu Regero, that is Chulhuregio, and it's saturated with craters. Moore suspects that they were created during something called the Late Heavy Bombardment 4 billion years ago. Going with the flow. The combination of light, strong water ice bedrock and softer flowing glaciers made up of 90% nitrogen creates these strange interactions. They don't think the soft volatile ice, didn't think the soft volatile ice could have built water ice into mountains of several kilometers high until they saw Pluto close up. And even with all the telescopes they've got, you really get this close flyby view is when you really get the best picture, and you always learn more. When we laid out all of this materials in a large sandbox, weird and wonderful things can happen. And this is Will Grundy of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff. And they got some other geological oddities arise in the boundaries between the different types of terrain. Some highlands near this Sputnik planum are marked by valleys about 1 kilometer deep and up to 25 kilometers wide. And these glaciers seem to run down the plains. Once again, you're talking about an active planet. The networks of valleys resembles those found on Mars and Saturn's moon Titan. And this surprised more because conditions on Pluto prevent nitrogen from existing as a fluid that could carve out such valleys. And scientists aren't sure whether heavy nitrogen ice eroded the late water ice to create impressions. Mysteries abound. Also on Pluto's largest moon, Charon, something called Mordor Macula, a large reddish region near the moon's north pole, doesn't resemble anything else found on any other icy satellite in the whole freaking solar system. And they suggest its striking color is produced by methane and other volatile chemicals that freeze out of the atmosphere during Charon's long winters and are then covered by sunlight into darker compounds that do not evaporate. And the source of methane is unknown. That's interesting. Got to be a source. It may escape from Pluto's atmosphere, flew upward and came from Charon's interior. So there you go. Pluto, a much more interesting place than we had thought of. It's not just some little icy lump, sitting out there in space. Can you imagine what more we're going to find out? How much we've found out just in maybe the last couple of years. In this last year, we've found out more about the dwarf planet, Pluto, than probably all in human history. That's awesome. Awesome and amazing. And science could never, ever get boring, because just when we think we've got a really good idea about something, about a planet, and we get there, or we're able to analyze it in some way, shape, or form, and boom, you got surprises. You got to rewrite all the books. The adventure of science. My next story, it's about a dengue vaccine. Another vaccine really holds tremendous promise. And I think these vaccines are really the future of healthcare, because you're not talking about treating a disease after it has developed. You're talking about stopping it from developing in the first place. You're saving so much. We will be saving. We have saved so much pain and suffering. We've extended lives. We have improved the lives of these people who now get to live longer. And we're saving money. Think of all the money, these healthcare programs like Medicare. Their money is going to treat illnesses that have already developed. And now, through these vaccines, we keep them from taking place, from happening in the first place. Save money, save time, save suffering. And in this particular case, it was a clinical trial in which volunteers were infected with dengue virus 6 months after receiving either an experimental dengue vaccine or a placebo injection. And all 21 volunteers who received the vaccine, TV003, were protected from infection. And all 20 placebo recipients developed infections, and they're minor infections. The story goes on to tell how the placebo, you didn't get the full-on dengue fever. You got something that gave you like a rash, or so they claimed. I ain't signing up for any kind of study like that. In any event, let's see. We have Stephen Whitehead of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. In fact, these results inform the recent decision by officials of Brazil's Butantan Institute to advance this vaccine to a large phase 3 efficacy trial. Dengue fever prevalent throughout the tropics and subtropics. It's caused by any one of 4 related dengue viruses. And these different types, they're called serotypes. And they're spread by a mosquito whose name I will not attempt to pronounce. And it's the same mosquito that can spread this Zika virus that we've been hearing a lot about. And most of the 390 million people who are infected each year develop either no symptoms or mild illnesses. However, some people develop serious or life-threatening illnesses, and large outbreaks lead to millions to seek care, straining healthcare infrastructure, and endemic countries that really, for the most part, don't have the resources to deal with it. The high prevalence of natural dengue infections in some endemic areas means that many people have experienced infection at some point in the past, and maybe they're immune to it. They've developed an immunity. A high degree of partial immunity can make it difficult to assess the efficacy of candidate drugs. So that's why I have to come up with a different kind of trial. And the model they used is, let's see, it was okay. I want to skip ahead a little bit. Just don't want to stay up here reading stories to you. The experimental vaccine was developed primarily by David Whitehead and his colleagues at National Health Institute Laboratory of Infectious Diseases. Food and Drug Administration also helped out. Okay, the trial. A total of 48 healthy adults enrolled in 2 trials. And then 6 months later, 41 people returned. Hopefully the other 7, nothing much happened to them and they didn't bother coming back. And these 41 that did return for the particular challenge to be tested. Whitehead and his colleagues established the virus dose that would cause all recipients to develop Vimera, the presence of virus in the blood, and which would at most develop a mild rash. This modified, and that's the key, they had a modified dengue virus, is what you need for this kind of trial because we can use it to reliably induce dengue infection in a high percentage of inoculated volunteers without causing the illness. Now, in the study, all 20 placebo recipients developed this viremia. That is, they found evidence of it in the blood. 16 had a mild rash. 4 had a temporary drop in blood cell count. None of the recipients who actually received the vaccine developed Vimera or any other infections. And Dr. Whitehead is currently developing a human challenge model using a modified serotype 3 virus. And they're hoping this virus can be used in future clinical trials to test the efficacy of candidate dengue vaccines, and other therapies. So, I mean, this really looks promising because, I mean, it's already gone to a clinical trial. That's, I mean, you can test on mice all you want. You can test it even on primates and non-human species, but you're really only going to find out exactly how it affects people when you try it on people. And the ability to come up with a mild virus that you can confidently say models the more virulent virus that's a big step. And in this particular case, hopefully, this Dengue vaccine will continue on further trials and prove to be successful. So that's another great vaccine success story. Okay, moving on. And I'm going to hang out of here as long as my voice can hang in there. Now, this next story is Alzheimer's. Now, that's in my age range. There's so many people, obviously, once you start getting into your 60s, so many of my friends, they're more concerned with a mental condition like Alzheimer than they are on a serious illness that could lead to death. And what they've done, let's see, maybe I can, it didn't really enlarge very much. Let's see if I can follow. Okay, so what you've got right there, a little pink thing, what you've got is a genetically engineered product, antibodies. The antibodies can be placed under the skin. They go, somebody's calling me. They go under the skin. They go into, in this case, the mouse model's brain. And you can see there's a change without the capsule to with the capsule. So let me just quickly see. Okay. One of the fellow minions, our young friend Kyle, looks like he's going to have to buy a new router. That's too bad. Well, I will continue on with my story. Now, there's a little cartoon. Unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the dialogue. I'm going to turn it on, talk through what I read here, and maybe this will give you a little bit better picture of what's happening. And one of the hypothesized causes of Alzheimer's is the overaccumulation of the protein amyloid beta in different areas of the brain. This results in the disposition of aggregated protein plaques. We've all heard about the problem with plaques, and they're toxic to neurons. The most promising way to fight the plaques is to tag the amyloid proteins with antibodies that signal the patient's own immune system to attack and clear them. So now you're using the system's own immune system. To be most effective, this treatment has to be given as early as possible, before the first signs of cognitive decline. And that's the key. Now we're talking about treating an illness before it develops. But this requires repeated vaccine injections that have side effects. Now, this is researchers at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. Not sure if that might be Switzerland or France. And the scientists have now solve the problem, they say, with an implant that can deliver a steady and safe flow of antibodies to the parent's brain to clear these proteins away, the plaque. And this is Peter Iobrusher, and they developed this bioactive capsule containing cells that have been genetically engineered to produce antibodies against this amyloid plaques. The capsule is planted in the tissue under the skin. Over time, the cells produce and release a steady stream of antibodies. Okay, from where they can cross over into the brain and target the plaques. The capsule itself is based on a design published in 2014, something called the microencapsulation device, made of two permeable membranes sealed together and a polypropylene frame. The whole thing is 27 meters long, 12 meters wide, and 1.2, it's millimeters, sorry, 27 millimeters long. A meter long, that would be pretty big. It's just 27 millimeters long, 12 millimeters wide, and 1.2 millimeters thick. And it contains a hydrogel that facilitates cell growth. And all of the material are biocompatible, and the labs specifically use this easily reproducible because it's easily reproducible for large-scale manufacturing. The cells inside the capsules, not only must they be able to produce antibodies, but they also have to be compatible with the patient so as to trigger the immune system against them, like a transplant can. This is where the capsule's membranes come into play, shielding the cells from being identified and attacked by the immune system. This protection means that the cells from a single donor can be used in multiple patients. That's a big advance. Before going into the capsules, the cells are first genetically engineered to produce antibodies that specifically recognize and target the plaques. The cells are taken from muscle tissue, and the permeable membranes let them interact with the surrounding tissue to get all the nutrients and molecules they need. Researchers tested the device on mice with great success. The mice, and this is once again a genetic line, a line that's been specifically developed to simulate Alzheimer's, showed a dramatic reduction of these plaques. The consistent flow of antibodies produced by the capsules over a period of 39 weeks prevented formation of these plaques in the brain, and subsequently also reduced the phosphorylation of the protein tau, which is another sign of Alzheimer's. And this is a proof of concept work, a mouse model. It shows that, because it's at least it's reached the point where it's helping mice. As with any mouse study, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help human beings. I would say at the very least, other researchers will be able to look at this, look at the study, maybe they can improve on it. So even if this itself doesn't work the way it's supposed to with humans, somewhere down the road, hopefully in the not too distant future, other researchers will be able to improve on it. And preventing disease. That's really, man, that's going to create such a quantum leap in healthcare. It's already these vaccines for smallpox and these other diseases that used to affect millions of people. And my friend Yanni, hello Yanni, You don't have, you're a young kid. You had your birthday recently. You don't got to worry about Alzheimer's just yet. That's just for old folks like me. And but when Yanni and our friend Kyle, when as they grow up, they're going to have vaccines like this. They're going to be able to treat them and prevent them from getting disease. Maybe I can hang in there as long as you do. Maybe I can make it to 100. Yanni, you get to have some nice Finnish birthday cake?
Yeah.
That's great. I've reached the point, I mean, I've kind of run out of fingers and toes to count how old I am at this point. So I am going to jump into the next story. And this is talking about the trends I've talked about in the first story, which is bioengineering. And this is an article in nature.com, and it is talking about biofactories, the kind of biofactories we're going to have in the future, where living pills, where we're going to be able to take bacteria, and the bacteria will be producing chemicals that we need instead of having, these big factories where I have to import, mining and things like that. Okay, I got a couple of. I'm going to have all of this in the show notes. This thing is about 9 pages long, and I'm only going to read from the first couple of pages. Scientists are designing cells that can manufacture drugs, food, materials, and even act as diagnostic biosensors. From an evolutionary perspective, excuse me, yeast has no business producing a painkiller, but by re-engineering the microbe's genome, Christina Smolk at Stanford University was able to do precisely that. Her and team, they turned yeast into a biofactory by starting with the sugar as the raw ingredient. Makes the potent protein drug hydrocodone. The yeast is the prime example of synthetic biology. Scientists reprogramming cells to replicate products found in nature. Even more specialized materials than we would normally have produced by a natural organism. And the natural organisms, obviously limited. And here, in effect, what you're doing, maybe you're even speeding up evolution here. Going on. Synthetic biologists, they're ambitious critters. We all have to imagine a world where we could adopt biology to manufacture any product renewably, quickly, and on demand. And Michael Jewett, he's a synthetic biologist at Northwestern University, talking about groups around the world, and they're engineering yeast, bacteria, other cells to make plastic and biofuels and medicine, textiles, living factories that are cheaper, simpler, and more sustainable than our industrial counterparts. Think of all the waste that you have when you're taking materials from the ground, and then you have to do something with these materials, maybe put them into a furnace or something, and then you have to mold them, and then you get your product, and then the final product, maybe you've got to find a way of getting rid of it, and you're eliminating all those steps through bioengineering, and your factory is in a lab. But synthetic biologists are going beyond simply producing materials. Now, let me see, maybe I can get a good close-up of how this one particular bioengineered bacteria works. You got your immune cells. And they take the immune cells, this is the pro-inflammatory cytokines. I'm probably mispronouncing that word, but cytokines. And the cytokines go into this little gel, and they produce anti-inflammatory cytokines that go back up and treat the disease. How cool is that? I don't know if they got any other. I'll go on. Okay, this young field has already spawned several success stories, and I know you guys have probably read about several of them themselves. They've built biomedical sensors that can detect disease-resistant metabolites in the blood and sugar, the production of therapeutic compounds. Now, in mice, biosensors that can reduce gout and obesity and diseases like psoriasis. But for the field to advance, academics and industrial players must agree on a toolbox of reliable genetic parts and the best strategies for assembling them. To build an artificial synthetic, biologists they have to select DNA parts on a computer. And this is computer modeling, manufacturing them with specialized instruments. The parts can then be inserted into the DNA microorganism, and cells to reprogram it. Now it says, and this DNA sequencing and our ability to work with DNA, manipulate, geoengineer DNA, and the cost is plummeting. Excuse me. And there's now a vast collection of genetic data through which synthetic biologists can shift and find useful genes. How is that for sharing? You're looking for a particular gene, you got to affect this gene. This is the one you got to work with. Now you've got a whole library available to you. And this is Christopher Vogt, who works at MIT. One Living Database, the National Center of Biotechnology Information Gene Bank, they've got 190 million DNA sequences from over 100,000 organisms. Some of the most widely used genetic parts encode enzymes, proteins that are essential to manufacturing. To transfer glucose into hydrocodone, something like that. For example, Smolk's team took 23 enzyme encoding genes from diverse species, put them into yeast, and they took the genetic designer's palette, stretches of DNA that regulate the activity of nearby genes and cause them to be expressed. When the proteins called transcription factors bind to a promoter, the process of transcribing a gene begins. But promoters operate too slowly for some synthetic bioapplications. We're trying to build things that operate fast on a millisecond time scale. Another biologist, Pamela Silver of Harvard Medical School, and they're examining alternative mechanisms that allow gene expression to be controlled directly by signals in the environment, such as toxins or antibodies. Let's see. We're talking about manufacturing DNA has never been easier. Even carefully designed circuits can malfunction and cause unwanted expression of a gene or interference between the genetic elements in the biological circuit. Outcomes that cannot be foreseen in computer models. The community is very much interested in operating in the world where the community is very much operating in a world where we cannot predict what is going to happen. That didn't make any sense. So they want to operate in a world where they can predict what is going on and what's going to happen in our systems when we build them. And computer modeling alone only takes you so far. But I think that's really in all phases of technology. When we create technology, when we do any kind of medicine or anything else, computer modeling is increasingly at least the very first step. But unfortunately, it only goes so far. This uncertainty means that many steps in the engineering of a synthetic system needs to be tested and optimized. In that case, you need software tools, and robots are speeding up each part of the process. So they're building an artificial DNA to insert it into a microbe. You can use high throughput prototyping to just build every variant. And then hopefully you will hit the one you want. That's a guy at Cal Berkeley, Jeff Castling. Biofoundries, how's that for a name? Are enabling synthetic biologists to embark in ambitious projects. For example, Voga, who co-directs the MIT Broad Foundry, signs a collaboration with the Swiss pharmaceutical company Novartis, Novartis, to manufacture a wide range of molecules that are produced by bacteria in the human gut. And you got other institutions pursuing the biofoundry model, including something called SNYBICIT, SNYBICIT, Imperial College of London, and the National University of Singapore. You've got DARPA involved, heavily invested in this MIT Broad facility, $32 million they're putting into it. But some biologists remain skeptical about the rush to scale up and automate and favor a more theory-driven strategy. But one of the researchers there at this particular laboratory say you can rapidly run a whole series of experiments in parallel to see which works. Somebody's been signaling me. Let me see. That's Jani. Jani is giving our friend Kyle some advice. There you go. Jani loves his technology. You go to friend Jani on Facebook. You're going to get a bazillion links of different computer technology. The final paragraph here, I'll just read it. Final two paragraphs. Field is in its infancy. It can be dauntingly complex. Well, all science is like that. But a growing number of scientists grounded in conventional molecular biology, they want to try genetic testing. And you're reaching the point where people almost in a garage someplace can do genetic engineering. A little bit scary, but it shows you how widespread these applications are. We're just like the article said, we're just in our infancy regarding bioengineering factories. Me and Dale, and Dale's not with us because he's an engineer at a TV station. So they got some problems in a city away from him, so that's where he is tonight. And we always talk about the problem of robots, and all this technology is replacing jobs. And it will. Just like all technology, all major changes in technology do change jobs. The issue is how quickly can we train people for the new jobs that are also created, because new technology produces new jobs. Green tech. People are worried about all the jobs they're going to lose in the oil industry, etc. But solar panels, somebody's got to build the solar panels. Somebody's got to maintain the solar panels. Electric cars. Well, somebody's got to build those electric cars, and self-driving cars, whatever you want to call it. Somebody's going to have to at least design the program that the robot will use to make that car in the factory. I'm not sold on this idea of AI intelligence replacing or being able to be better than human intelligence anytime soon in the foreseeable future. Okay, they can beat us playing a game like they did with Go. Okay, big whoop. They got all, they got the computing power of a super computer. They got massive amounts of processing power, of memory. I mean, a computer isn't going to forget anything. It can analyze, like with that whole Go business, the human losing the game of Go. Well, the computer could analyze every single move and every single game of Go that's ever been played. Human can't do that. But I insist it is the creative side. A human is going to have to be the first one to build that first algorithm. And the computer will take that algorithm and it'll do fantastically well, but it's going to take another human to say, you know what, let's go off in a completely different direction. AI, computer intelligence, they're just going to keep going. It's the human, well, not this human necessarily, but Jani, and maybe Kyle, because he's going to college.
Kyle have router problems.
That's exactly right. Fringe, I can see in the chat area, Yanni's talking about fringe. Well, it's still people. It's people in fringe every step of the way. Let's see. There's an interesting story, a really interesting topic. And it's talking about, and this is Nature magazine, an article in Nature magazine, the growing urbanization of the future using science to build cities. Going to screen share the story simply because you don't have to look at my bald head. There you go. Now, and this is, well, last year, you've got, I'll jump ahead a little bit. You've got two models. Excuse me. You've got building cities in countries where the government controls the process, like China. And that's what this article starts with, China. And then you have places like the United States where development is controlled to a very large extent by commercial developers. Problems with both models. And as this story really reinforces, both government and developers, and it's really cities, and it's really the inspectors who are approving these projects. And you really need scientists to help direct and be involved in that process. And I'm going to read from the article. Late last year, Chinese officials reactivated machine of the state that had lain idle almost 4 decades. They reconvened something, and of course, it is the government. So this is the Central Urban Work Conference. And they gave them a task. They wanted to know how to revamp and revitalize the nation's growing, choking cities. Now, when you're talking about a growing, choking city in China, you're not talking about a couple of million people. In some cases, these urban complexes, I mean, they might have 50. They may soon have 100 million people. With the expert group when the expert group issued its recommendations, it backtracked on many of the country's previous urban policies. The new plan promises denser streets to break the damaging reign of the car, mixed use neighborhoods with greater diversity, and more investment in public transport. Now, China has long been said to have 1,000 cities with the same face, and now the scientists want to put a smile on it. I don't know about that. I mean, a big difference again is China. Okay, if China gets into public transportation, they'll put, big bucks into it, $1 bazillion into it. United States government, United States politicians really don't like mass transit at all. A couple of big cities, I think New York, the New York metropolitan area is the only area in the country where mass transit actually turns a profit. Amid the scientific and social priorities for the coming year, the study designed cities must be right at the top. Humans are now an urban species and has been since city dwellers started to outnumber rural folks first time decades ago. And the trend that's going to continue, obviously. The United Nations says by 2050, 70% of the global population will live in urban environments. Now, I think that's pessimistic. You have a trend in some places of people moving back to the country. You got those crazy people on Science Island like me and Yanni. We want to build our own little community that we can control, and we want to be off the grid. But most people, they're drifting to the city. I just don't see that trend reversing itself anytime soon. The question being, what kind of an environment will it be? And it says, so far the signs are not too good. Well, I would call it mixed. Too many people, especially those in rapidly developing countries, and now this is a little bit too dark. They say it's like Charles Dickens in his 1950 work, Little Dorrit. And it's miles of closed walls and pits with housing, inhabitants grasping for air. And you know what? That's true in Beijing, China. Through the heart of the town, a deadly sewer ebbed and flowed. That is still even true in some parts of the world. Some cities in the world. Now, scientists are responding. Excuse me for a second. Got to drink a little tea here. Some cities in the world, he said, are responding. And you've got many of the world's universities and the world's cities are leading a new wave. This is evidence-driven, data-rich research that aims to understand what makes cities tick from a scientific viewpoint and how to get them running smoothly. From the best city dwellers should move forward how to protect their water. And there's a whole bunch of articles in Nature talking about this. Science and technology has a checkered history. On the plus side, great urban visionaries, such as a town planner by the name of Peter Geddes, British town planner, trained as a scientist, they were able to bring the ideas of ecology and natural environment to their task. Now we're getting designs and we're getting architects that are really good at creating some energy efficient, ecologically friendly urban centers. So it's starting You see it, I really see it more in Europe than any place else. I don't know, going to be a hard sell in the US, but in any event. It is less enlightened contribution to haste signs around the automobile. Now, that's the problem. I can remember the automobile. How do you design a city that can mitigate the automobile when so many people want the independence that the automobile gives us? We don't have to rely on a mass transit schedule. We don't have to rely on mass transit breaking down. We have our car. We don't have to, let's say, leave when the train, we know the train's going to show up. We can stay whenever we want. We can set our own time, basically, because we have the car. And that's been a tough one. I think of my hometown of Stamford, Connecticut, and it was 40s, by the 40s into the 50s, had been a factory town, and the factories moved away to south. So it was a dying city. Then in the early 1960s, into the 60s, Lyndon Baines Johnson, then president, started his Great Society program. He sent the cities buckets of money so they could revitalize themselves. Excuse me again. Well, the architects, the designers came up with a beautiful looking model. No cars in the center of the city, basically walking, maybe people using bikes. It looked terrific and lasted about 5 minutes until the developers came around. And Stamford was redeveloped based on commercial development. And guess what? We got heavy traffic in downtown Stamford. I haven't been back to my hometown in quite a while, but it's a mini New York. It's got all of the problems of a big city, probably improving just a little bit, but the only thing that's happened is you've got condominiums and condominium apartments and things going up, replacing where homes used to be. So that's really the problem. Architects, the architects and a scientist, architects and engineers, man, they could look at any city and figure out how to make it work better. But the commercial developers are going to get involved, and their primary interest is profits. The question for the developer is not, is this a good design? Is it eco-friendly? Is it going to fit into the environment? They ask one question, is it profitable? That's the American model. I don't know. I see some signs of a change, but not nearly enough. I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical that any commercial developer, cities redesigning what they want, or maybe you've got an urban area, outlying area, and you want to bring in a mall or something like that. I'm going to guess the last person anyone goes to is a scientist. They're going to go to a commercial developer. They're going to go to, and maybe the commercial developer, if we're really, really lucky, hires an architect who understands what's an efficient design. I guess maybe the best bet will be when green technology demonstrates that it's the best way to go, not just because it's ecologically friendly or energy efficient, but because it's the most profitable way to go. Recycling, energy, using the sunlight. When it can be shown to be profitable, and it is, then you're going to see your developers changing a little bit more about how they think. I'm afraid it's going to take a few years, and I am very pessimistic as far as the United States is concerned. Yanni's Finland and the Scandinavian countries do a much better job of that. They do. They're much better at overall taking into account green technologies. I don't know. Well, we'll have to see. Okay. So China, getting back to China, the problem with China's got kind of the opposite thing, because they're not looking about the commercial developers getting into the act. They're talking about the freaking politicians. And in China, when the China politician, he's not saying, well, we're going to rebuild this little neighborhood. He's saying, we're going to take those 600 villages and we're going to move those villages over here. And we're going to create a big water supply and a dam and you have electric power, which they do. And you put, and then you've moved, 60 million people away from their homes. So the centralized political structure, not so good. Commercial development profit model, not so good. Got to get the scientists involved somehow. I got a really, really cool one. Okay, Yanni, this is for you. You're going to be posting this on YouTube tomorrow. This is a soft unmanned drone. And this one, you're going to want to see. You're really going to want to see this particular neat looking drone. I don't know if these developers, if it'll go up to, and I'm going to play this little video here. It is freaking cool. Play the video.
The eyeball.
A floating eyeball. Now, you can't hear what he's saying, but you can see this, what this is. That is Daniel Meyer. Yanni, can you hear him?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, but you can see it. This is Sky, the giant floating eyeball. Unique flying machine, safe enough to interact with. You can touch it in flight. It's basically filled with helium that provides much, which, where am I? I lost my place there. See, it's basically filled with helium. And then you have motors, little drone motors on the side.
And now chocobo.
Wow. You have motors. That's where the magic happens. Computer on board, which knows exactly how it's oriented in the world. Give it commands to the motors that actually align it to where you want to be. And there are 4 motors on it which can rotate around an axis. You really can get some very precise control over its movements. 2 hours on a single charge. Can carry onboard cameras for live streaming and aerial cinematography. Okay. All right, I'm going to end the screen. Well, no, I better not end the screen share. You're going to look at my bald head. And here's what he says. Current drones have a severe limitation because of the rotating blades, which are not covered. So you can harm yourself. And there's a bigger issue. If the electronics fail, it just falls down on the ground and nobody's happy. Can't happen with sky is what he's saying, because helium provides the buoyancy. Something goes wrong, you got a big balloon of people to play with. Yeah, man, that is freaking cool. And I am attempting. Okay, come on. Okay, back in the Hangout. That is awesome. I don't know how many practical applications it will have. I mean, in sporting events in the United States, you got this, or had this big blimp that gave you a picture of events. Now you could have this little blimp. Well, now you got cameras that can go back and forth. I don't know, but it's very, very cool. I guess if you're in some kind of an environment, trying to think of an application where you're going to be maybe like in a city where you're going to worry about bumping a regular drone. You don't want it bumping into buildings or something. This isn't going to have that problem. Kind of slow. You only got 2 hours worth on a charge, so it might have some practical applications over your conventional drone, where you're concerned about what something your drone may bump into. All right, when they first come out, I'm sure a bunch of people are going to buy it just because it looks so freaking cool. Let's see, 1 a.m. here. I don't see Justin. I got a couple of Trump stories, scientifically oriented Trump stories. Jump ahead a little bit, and maybe Justin will show up and we can get into the Trump political business. Let's see. Let me see. This is kind of, that's really good news. Good news on the energy front. It's an example of a good trend. Maybe this is a picture. Maybe this shows that more and more people are moving away from coal because the world's largest private coal mining company, it is going bankrupt. Yeah, let me go to the screen share. Okay. And I'm going to read a little bit. It's called Peabody Engineering. And the company was created way back in 1883. Chicago entrepreneur named Francis Peabody, selling coal to homes and businesses. He opened his first mine in Southern Illinois. During First World War, he was asked by President Wilson to chair a government committee aimed at improving supply and controlling prices in order to avert an energy crisis. And then from there, the company expanded and flourished. It merged with a rival and moved its headquarters to St. Louis in the 1950s and expanded its mine operations Western U.S. and Australia, later into Appalachia. It boomed during the Middle East oil embargo and became the largest privately owned company in the world. Then comes the bad news for our friend, the Peabody family. They announced on Wednesday that they're filing a prospect of filing bankruptcy protection. The company based in St. Louis, Missouri, and man, poor old St. Louis, Missouri, nothing but negative headlines from that place. And huge presence in American Australian mining. It was acquired by Britain's Hasten PLC industrial conglomerate in the 1990s. The price dropped 43% in the morning, and the slide has continued. Now, the company said they're going to fail to make a $71 million interest payment on Tuesday, when they had a 30-day deadline to come up with the money, or make a payment, and they couldn't. So goodbye, Peabody Engineering. Now you got now the people who gave them all this money got problems. Its core business is selling coal to electric companies and acquiring mine operations and supplying to steel makers. And many of the utilities are switching their supply of raw materials to natural gas because of cheaper prices and tightening energy regulations. Now, in recent times, Peabody has come under growing criticism for attacking the science of climate change. Big surprise. Promoting coal as the key tool to relieve poverty. It's going to revive it. It's not going to relieve it. Last year, the company agreed to change but they said, we're going to change our ways. You got the Attorney General of the U.S., Eric Schneiderman, accused Peabody of violating state laws prohibiting false and misleading conduct in relation to its public statements. He said the company had circulated internal projections of the likely effect of regulations on business while publicly arguing it was unable to create these predictions in the first place. No, we got you nailed, Peabody. So that's, I don't want to see all the oil companies go out of business. I would hate, I don't know, I do want to see it actually, but I'm hoping that, I feel sorry for the workers and the coal miners. Once again, we got to find a job for these people. And once again, I hope the answer is energy efficient technology and green technology. Man, coal mining, that's a dirty business. It's a dangerous business. Fewer people are involved in it, but still, I mean, you still get coal mines, and around the world, you still read about them. Coal mine collapses, etc. You have, I think, India's investing heavily, I think, because it's an abundant resource. It's cheap. Once again, people like the Republican Party, they say, okay, U.S. has got plenty of coal. We got coal resources. Let's use the resources we have. It does make sense until you look at the resources, coal, and you see how dirty it is, the health problem it creates, and it's not efficient. You got to get it out of the ground. You got to smelt it and whatever the heck they do, and then you got to transport it across country. It's a very inefficient process overall. So I see that as a good news story, a positive trend, that the world's largest private coal company is going out of business. Okay. An interesting story, which is kind of good news, bad news. Teachers are going to crowdfunding to get school supplies. It's interesting that they're getting creative, and let's see, I have to get to the right, there we go, I'm on the right, get the old screen share right here. Boom, there we go. And excuse me, let me whistle a bit. We have the annual meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And the writer of this particular article in the Christian Science Monitor, one of the best he's witnessed in 20 years. Policy sessions were packed and stimulating, tons of smart people. And he, oops, I've got the wrong story. You don't want to hear about Donald Trump just yet. Okay, I'm going to read.
Don't. Trump.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read from the story here. I lost my little write-up. In any event, you have Alexandria Boyd, and she needs some books. She's in Little Rock, our friend Arkansas. And the public schools that cater to underserved communities, and the schools don't have a lot of money. Her students need reading material. So she turned to this organization, DonorsChoose.org, crowdfunding website that helps public school teachers raise funds for projects and schoolroom materials. She put together a book list, posted it online in appeal, and helped to reach her target of $556, which were enough for 123 books. So there you go. A teacher in one school be able to get enough money through crowdfunding, this donor choice organization, so that she can go out herself and buy books. But man, your individual teacher has to do that. I don't know. Overall, that's not really a very good sign. In our particular case, the library was small. We did not have many grade level books, but the books she was able to buy did help. You got tight budgets. You've got these two organizations, DonorChoice.org and AdoptAClassroom.org. Spend an average of $500 of their own money every year, classroom supplies. Teachers spending their own money. And this really isn't any substitute for policy solutions to public's educational finance issues. It's great. You've got these two. If any school teachers out there, I'm going to have this in the show notes, DonorsChoice.org and Adopt a Classroom. There you go. Adopt a Classroom. And education, man, everything I've been reading so far, it should hammer in the point. Education, education, education. Jobs are going to change. The coal mining jobs going away. Factory jobs going away. Kids got to be trained, and the children in the worst situation are those living in the poverty areas, the areas that don't have a lot of financing. I know in the town I live in now, Seymour, Connecticut, it's property. It's I'm drawing a blank now. Property taxes. The public education is financed by public property taxes. So we vote on two parts of the budget, the city budget, the education budget. And those two components equal our property tax. Every single year, what the school board asks for gets rejected. It takes 3 times of revising the budget downward before the school board budget finally gets passed. And that's Seymour, Connecticut. That's not, we're not in Appalachia. I don't mean to pick on Appalachia, but people are just so freaking short-sighted. Well, I guess maybe the teachers in Seymour, that's what they got to do. Got to go out with that, hat in hand and say, please give me some money. Let's see. The numbers indicate a substantial impact.
Money.
That is definitely the case. Okay, the numbers indicate a substantial impact. Since its inception in 1998, got a Minneapolis-based Adopt a Classroom. They raised $28 million in donations, funding and supplies for more than 143,000 classrooms in school districts across the country. Then you've got Pledge Sense a fundraising platform in Houston, Texas, caters to pre-kindergarten to 12 teachers. Boasts on their website they raised nearly $450,000 and saved more than 200,000 students the education of 200,000 students in 47 states. This donors, choose.org, raised $400 million in donations, 700,000 projects in 67,000 schools. That's a lot of schools. So, I mean, that clearly shows how underfunded so many American schools are. And I'm going to guess in most cities, once again, people don't want to see their property taxes going up. And, well, what suffers? The educational process suffers. I can sympathize with people. But man, if you're going to spend if you're going to spend money in anything, it's got to be education. You have another group, celebrities, Samuel L. Jackson, Serena Williams, Facebook executive Sheryl Sandberg. They were able to pledge $14 million to help 12,000 classrooms projects across the country. It is, of course, a Band-Aid. David Plogar, the Digital Citizenship, a global network of projects that aim to promote safe and ethical use of social media and technology, making online philanthropy a model for raising funds long-term could not only lead to audiences, the people giving the money, donors, burning out, could also let the people responsible for the issue off the hook. And I don't care about who gets off the hook, who doesn't get off the hook. People have to be hit over the head. And one aspect of it is job training, job retraining. Where computers, robots are going to be taking over jobs. We got to train the kids in the skill sets that are going to be necessary for the jobs that are coming in the future. I got friends, and they talk about, you got to have the basics, reading, writing, written, talk, blah, blah, blah. That's not enough, man. You're going to need a whole lot more skills, technical skills. Technical skills is absolutely the key. Okay.
Coding from startup.
Yeah. You have to learn actually coding. You don't have to learn coding more than I shouldn't say more, but really more than actually reading.
Reading is important too.
Yeah. That was kind of a silly statement, but in coding, learning how to code and learn the algorithms, learning how to create the algorithms that are going to be driving everything. Let's see, what do we got here? Jani shared something. Let's take a look at this. Dark matter? I don't think that's what you're talking about, is it?
Yeah. Another one is robot building launch landing pads, possibly to Mars.
Going to Mars. Let's see. Going through the article. Let's see. Taking possibility of dark matter being made up of particles. Nobody knows what dark matter is made up of. Currently being studied through gravitational effects on normal matter. Okay. Dark matter is made up of, they don't know what dark matter is made up of. They say super heavy particles. Astronomers can detect evidence of them in the afterglow of the Big Bang. Super heavy particles. Previous dark matter research, they ruled out known ordinary materials. Gravitational effects, okay, attributed to dark matter, include the orbital motions of galaxies. Combined, I know dark energy is involved, whatever the heck that is made up of. Combined mass of the visible matter in a galaxy. Clouds cannot account for a galaxy's motion. True. So something else has to be involved. Yeah, dark matter, which is why they call it dark. Let's see. Sorry for dissing all this, these scientists here, but what do they know? Consensus so far, scientists, the missing mass is made up of a new species of particles. Ah, wonderful. This interact only weakly with ordinary matter. Okay? The new particles would exist outside the standard model. Okay. I don't know. That's kind of a bold statement, but some dark matter molecule. I say that doesn't sound right, and that's me with my vast experience and my vast knowledge saying that these people with their PhDs don't know what they're talking about. Let's see. Suggests some cosmic substances is made of weakly interacting massive particles or WIMPs. Okay? 100 times the mass of a proton. Okay? They've searched for it, haven't been able to find it, leaving open the possibility that dark matter could be something very different. And of course, the problem here is to learn about something, you have to be able to observe it. And when you're talking about, let's say, gravity, we don't have any technology that can actually look at gravity and see what's inside it. Well, I mean, I don't even know how we're going to come up with them. I mean, maybe a computer model at some point. But these things are so indetectable that it's very, very hard to do any real science. Obviously, you can see that. So all they can do is come up with speculation. They get little hints. You had the super collider, at the Hadron Large Collider, coming up with these little hints of something different. It's an interesting article, Jani. This researchers, Sandroa, I don't know. His colleagues are exploring the upper mass limit of dark matter. Trying to discover just how massive these individual particles could possibly be. Okay, gory math. And the new model, okay, here we go. Planckian interacting dark matter. Okay, each of the weakly interacting particle weighs about 10 to the 19th power, or 10 billion times more than a protein. And once again, we're talking about mass. About as heavy as a particle can be before it becomes a miniature black hole. Right? Wow. Interesting research there. And a particle that is 10 to the 19th power it's about a milligram. Wait a minute. Particle that is 10 to the 19th power, the mass of a particle weighs about 1 microgram. They're talking about weight in different ways. In comparison, researchers suggest that a typical human cell weighs about 3.5 milligrams. And again, we're talking about different kinds of weight in different measurements, different ways of measuring weight. The genesis of this idea is supermassive particles begin feeling of despondency. Oh, too bad. Sad scientist. We can't rule out the WIMP scenario yet, but with each passing year, it looks less and less likely. Better jump ahead. Researchers have suggested that these particles exist. Signs of their existence might be detectable in cosmic microwave radiation. Prevailing view in cosmology is that moments after the Big Bang, the universe grew gigantically in size. This enormous growth spurt, called inflation, would have smoothed out the cosmos, explaining why it now looks similar in all directions. So, I mean, you would have had all the material that made up the Big Bang, is my vision of it, as well as I can understand it, which is not very well. But when they become out of balance, so they're all packed together, energy, particles, whatever the heck it is, everything is in perfect balance, so you have nothing happening, no chemistry, no interactions at all. Something happens, some kind of an interaction, something goes out of balance, and they all blow apart. And by all, that means the collective total energy of every particle, everything in the universe today. That's what they call it, the Big Bang. And that's why it would have gone out equally, they think, in all directions, because it's all these particles just getting blown apart at the same time. After inflation, research suggests that the leftover energy heated the newborn universe in something called the reheating phase. Colleagues suggest that similar temperatures generated during reheating could have produced large amounts of these super heavy particles. Okay. Don't have a model to work with. Let's see. Dark matter has made up these super heavy particles. And how in the world you come up with the technology so that you can observe these super heavy molecules? Would only shed light on the nature of most of the universe. Okay. That's an interesting article, Jani. And I can talk about a little bit about a question with these gravitational, the two pictures of the universe. The way I look at it, you have the Einstein general relativity view, and then that's the macro universe, the universe on a big scale, on space-time as the fabric holding it of the universe, and then you have the micro view of the universe, quantum mechanics, everything being made of a quanta of something. I think I'm getting some lag, it looks like. Maybe I can power down a bit. In any event, sorry if you're getting any lag here, but gravity. Okay, you can.
Gravity waves.
Yes. Okay, so you have all the matter in the universe. You have these objects. They're resting on space-time. They're resting in these gravity wells. The depth of the gravity well is based on the mass of the object. Okay. You had a merger of two black holes, very, very massive objects, the most massive objects I think of. And one of the mass holes must have had a greater mass than the other. So the lighter less mass black hole goes into the event horizon of the black hole with larger mass, and they merge. All of the matter in the two black holes merge together, creating another supermassive black hole. As a result of this, you have gravitational waves created. Like they say, you throw a rock on a pond, you can see those little waves generated. Okay. Now, the standard model says all interactions, everything that happens in the universe is a result of an interaction. And at the heart of all interactions, there has to be a particle. You have two particles with mass. You have a particle called a boson interacting between the two of them. And that interaction causes something to happen. Electromagnetism, the interaction between electrons with a negative charge, protons in a nucleus with a positive charge, and you got the little boson, the way I see it, interacting between the two, causing these two particles to move away from each other. That is offset by the interaction between the electrons in the nucleus, and there the boson interaction causes these two particles to come together. So the push-pull of electromagnetism, everything balances out, atoms stays together. Okay, so it comes down to you're talking about a particle. All interactions, you're talking about a particle. Now we go back to gravitational waves. So you have the merging of the two black holes. That would seem to me, this thing called these gravitational waves, they must, according to quantum mechanics, they must consist of something. They are something. Whether with and without mass, I don't know, but they've got to be something. And Ed's crazy idea is, well, okay, there must be residual energy produced as a result of the collision of the two black holes. Now, we're kind of talking about a black hole losing energy, at least, energy mass, just like with the nuclear interaction, when a neutron decays, it decays into a proton. The neutron has more mass than a proton, and so you have residual energy released. Something like that is the only way I can picture what gravitational waves, how they're created. They're created from the residual energy of the collision of the two black holes. I don't know. What do you think, Jani? Who's crazier, the old man or those silly physicists with their PhDs? That's an interesting article. Thanks, Jani. Okay. Now, I guess we're going to have to get into a couple of kind of science-related stories about our friend Donald Trump. Let me see. Excuse me for a second, guys. I don't know what happened I got my stories in here somewhere. The old man who can't just tell you all about gravitational waves, and he's got his stories mixed up. No, what the heck? I know. I've got the links. I've got the screen share. Here we go. And this is the science of Donald Trump.
Trumpian Donald.
Okay. Man, I hate that lag I'm seeing. All right. First, I got to go to the link. Then I can screen share it. And got to close. Here we go. There's our friend. I'm not going to show you a picture of that. Okay, guys, this is the part. If you're still here, you want to take your blood pressure medicine, or you want to start drinking, one or the other. I don't know. Damn it, that's not the one I want. Okay, I'll read from here. Just about every topic from eminent domain to hand size, oh good grief, has gone into debate in this election cycle. At least it's exciting, but excuse me, conspicuous in its absence is science. Our friend Donald Trump has made a few remarks. So let's see what Donald Trump has to say. Climate change, we gotta go slow. Now, first off, he said climate change was a Chinese-driven hoax. Then on Twitter, he said, ha, 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 just a big joke. But he says climate change is a very, very expensive form of tax. It's really hard on businesses. So we really shouldn't be taking any action on climate change. Donald, do you have, I wonder, you got any oceanside projects there? Maybe you own yourself a nice little home, seaside home. I got to tell you, Donald, when the oceans rise and you get these bigger and bigger flood tides, you're going to get flooded out. You know, tell New Orleans, tell New York City, you know, climate change is not a problem. Very expensive form of tax. Well, it's going to be pretty expensive, way more expensive when cities and governments have to deal with the effects of climate change. Let's see. We got a guy named Peter LaPoma. I'm not going to read everything he has to say. Misconception that either you get a good economy or you protect the environment. He's basically saying what I am. Okay, our friend Donald. On the Environmental Protection Agency, he says, cut funding. He'd probably like to get rid of it and return environmental protection responsibilities to the states. He says the agency is hurting business. And he makes the claim the EPA is the laughing stock of the world. Well, Donald Trump talking about laughing stocks. What's that, pot calling the kettle black? What can you say? EPA, you're talking about protecting the environment. You're talking once again about health problems associated with it. I don't know. It's the kind of thing that will obviously happen with either of the two main contenders for the Republican Party, either Trump or Cruz. Cruz might even be worse because there he goes by his religious doctrine. Trump's at least looking at like this as a businessman. We got a guy named Rice. Who's this? Rice University. He's got Rice University professor Neil Lane. There'll be serious repercussions if the EPA is severely downsized or abolished. Plays a critical role in protecting clean air and drinking water. Lake Erie was essentially dead. Then they referred to as a bunch of regulated hugging trees. But the states came together, and it's at least recovering. Let's see. Oh boy, here we go. Alter vaccination schedules to avoid autism. Trump says he favors vaccines. Not so sure Ted Cruz does. But giving children smaller doses over a longer period of time. Don't know the science backing that up. and he blames vaccines for causing autism in children. Well, tons of science proving that completely wrong. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. He says he wants to defund Planned Parenthood because of their abortion services. And of course, and this is a Professor Amy Tao, I can't pronounce her name, professor at Johns Hopkins University. No federal funding has gone to abortion since the Hyde Amendment of 1976. And even he said they're doing good work. So let's see, Planned Parenthood's low-cost care urban clinic locations, they're helping low-income women in particular. So he's completely off the mark there. The people I know against Planned Parenthood, most of the people I know is because of their religious doctrine. And again, it's the abortion issue. Now, I'm not really familiar with this Hyde Amendment of 1976. So I can't say if this professor is correct, but she could be. And that's the thing where if you're against something for any reason, do your research. Look at exactly where Planned Parenthood is spending their money. And the information is available. And if you do that, then you can see, are they in fact funding abortion clinics? And according to this Hyde Amendment, let's see, funding abortion, although you can get abortions for rape, incest, or where it endangers the life of the mother. Now that's a big issue. I might as well throw in my take on that. My view on abortion is I'm against it when you're talking about a fetus. I am in favor of it. I don't have a problem with it when you're talking the earliest stages of human development, your blastocysts and your zygotes, which you do all your a lot of the science research with. I don't have much of a problem with an embryo, although I don't think an embryo has any cognitive ability. So I am only opposed at this point to the abortion of a fetus, and primarily because I think a fetus demonstrates some cognitive ability. Rape. The issue should be you have two lives. You have a woman who has been raped, or a woman whose life will be significantly in danger if she gives birth. So you're talking about one life on one side of the equation. You're talking about the embryo or the fetus on the other side of the equation. Now, with a rape victim, the issue becomes if you force a woman who has been raped to give birth to that child, are you in effect destroying that woman's life? What's the effect on that woman of forcing her to give birth to a rapist's child? And that's really hard for me. I got a Y chromosome. I cannot relate to that in any way, shape, or form. I can't answer that question, or what a rape victim, what they're going through. I'm sure some of them commit suicide possibly. So I can't relate that in any way, shape, or form. But at least with a rape victim, there's some potential that they can recover, whereas if you abort the fetus, no chance for that life to continue. Rape's a tough one. Also equally tough is when you're talking about, well, no, legally it's not difficult for me because you cannot force anyone, including a woman, you can't force a woman to sacrifice her life for another person, which she would be doing. So if you get, I don't know, you get two specialists, two gynecologists or two specialists in childbirth, who say that there's like an 80% chance this woman will die if she gives birth. You cannot ask the mother to sacrifice her life even for her child. So there, I would say, might be up to some kind of a court or something. Maybe you need to get two medical specialists to sign off for that woman to be able to get an abortion. There's got to be someone investigating that possibility, that risk that the woman is going to lose her life. Okay. All right. Here we go. Our friend Trump wants to abolish and replace the Affordable Care Act. Now, he released his own health care plan. Okay. He promises to lower healthcare costs by allowing insurers bids across state lines. You get that now? Make health insurance tax deductible and remove barriers to prescription drugs entering from outside the country. We've had that already. Canada, for instance, we have Americans going into Canada to get drugs because they're cheaper. I think in the long run, giving everyone in America access to adequate health care, and let's say it's a tax or something like that, that is cheaper than things like Medicare. You're going to pay when people get sick. You're going to pay, the government, we the taxpayers, going to pay when some people need to replace the knees through Medicare, as an example. So I don't know enough about that Affordable Care Act. I've got Medicare. I'm one of the people, you taxpayers, you're paying for my health care. I had a friend, he had 2 knees replaced, didn't cost him a dime. So I got Medicare. Once again, I can't relate to this particular issue. I don't know enough about it, but it is worthwhile. Makes economic sense for the government to provide and pay for people's health care, because in the long run, it saves money, saves government money, it saves taxpayers money. Okay. And there we have it. Our friend Trump, our friend Donald Trump's healthcare plan. Man, I'm losing my voice. I'm getting laggy. I'm losing my voice. I'm just falling apart here.
Trumpiest plan of Donald.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Let's see. Like I say, I'm losing my voice here. I guess I can go into this last article. And then we're going to have to cut this short. I started at 1 o'clock. Well, almost 2 hours. Getting on 2 hours of the old guy sitting up here.
Yeah. Something could have told so many stories about Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'd be going to 4 o'clock in the morning if our friend Justin was here. Okay. I'm going to screen share simply. Am I frozen? Come on. Come on. Not let me screen share. Hello? Maybe. a thought. Okay. No, I got the wrong story. Oh, that didn't work out too well. I'm fading here. There, I'm fading, Yanni. Let me try another one. There we go. Ooh, that link doesn't work. It doesn't work. Oh boy. We got all kind of wheels going on here. All right. I hit it 3 times, so it tried to give me the story 3 times.
3 stories.
Oh, let's try this again. Okay, there you go. The elephant in the room, which is probably what people want to look at instead of me at this point. All right. Need another cup of tea.
More Trump.
All right, now this, I'm not really buying what this guy's talking about. He's presenting a darker picture, but it's a different viewpoint, and I definitely want to publish different viewpoints. He attended the American Association for the Advancement of Science, had a great meeting outside the hotel in the world at large. There was only trouble. Okay. Supporters, representatives of Donald Trump, and his extremely conservative rival, Ted Cruz, were simply not involved in any of these discussions, and they never are. Senior scientists are instead can't pronounce this, are linked to the centralist free market political establishment that has tended to rule, but which now is falling dangerously from public favor. I don't know. I think it's gaining more favor, to tell you, with a segment of the population, with the majority of Americans, as far as I can tell. I mean, you want to see anti-science was much worse when I was growing up. Anti-science bias. And what he's saying is it's not just the United States, but perhaps democracy itself that is in danger. Poland has just elected a reactionary government that's clamping down on freedom of the press. France is toying with electing a far right-wing politician. And the rest of the world's leaders are each threatened to a greater or less extent by economic and immigration problems. Populist nationalism is on the rise again. Okay, the Trump people, you're talking about a populist selling point. Mode of operation does not countenance the opinions of anybody else. Okay. Laboratory research can see this. They see it as somebody else's problem. But if the West is really in a decline and fall stage, I ain't buying that. It's Caligula's stage, Donald Trump's stage, and this isn't just an issue for political and financial elites. Everybody, it's a problem for everybody. Also a problem for the experts who crawl around in their ivory towers, massaging their egos and defending their interest. And the problem extends down to the community itself, engaging the public, but many scientists really just want to talk to them. And too many ordinary scientists hold politicians in utter intellectual contempt. Now, this addresses a legitimate viewpoint of, if you're a scientist, let's say Trump, the Trump effect, whatever you want to call it, as a scientist, you should be looking at it from a scientific perspective. And the people who are voting for Trump, we can sit back and laugh at them and say they're a bunch of jerks or something. There's a lot of them. They can't be denied. And they're not jerks, really. They're not stupid people. They have a particular perspective, of course. And to just ignore them isn't really a smart thing to do. Let's see. There's a paralysis. Leaping ahead to the last paragraph. A paralysis. Leading scientific organizations do little except chase money and reinforce the ruling nexus of politics and finance. Okay, you got a politician. You got science. Scientists are going before the public and talking about it. Let's see. Ruling nexus of political, finance, and science, and ever since the crisis of 2008. Yes, the financial crisis is what's fueling much of Donald Trump's support, which discredit the free market philosophy, underpins that nexus. The political structure of the West is in deep trouble, and should it fall apart, there's plenty of blame to go around. Okay, I can buy that there are serious problems. I'm not buying into it's falling apart. Jani, is the world falling apart? How serious could it? Is there a realistic chance that the world could be falling apart?
It depends. Perhaps not.
Okay. 50-50. There certainly is that risk. And you have the people who are voting for Trump have legitimate issues. The basis is probably economic. People who, they may have jobs, but they don't have high-paying jobs. You know, they maybe bought into the American dream. They figured they'd be much better off than they are now. They're losing faith in the country. Perhaps as a result of losing faith, a little bit of faith themselves. That I can understand. And you've got a lot of anger being generated. You can see the way that anger is being expressed. There is the risk in the United States, I guess other parts of the world, yes. I can see, well, right-wing governments, it kind of has been ebbing and flowing in Europe. Even in Scandinavian states, you have right-wing movements. So the economic problems give these people in the extreme right wing, it gives them a broader audience to talk to. So it's something we have to pay attention to, but there's the opposite trend, I think. More and more people, I think, they're seeing the positive aspects of science. They're using the product of science, which is technology, every single day. Your smartphones, your tablets, whatever it is. People more, I mean, technology, new technology being created through science, more and more people are using it, are seeing how it becomes necessary. So I think in general, maybe there's an age gap. Maybe it's the people under 30, maybe it's the people under 20. I mean, I have to say, I have lunch maybe a couple of times a week with retired buddies all around my age bracket. They all piss and cry about the world falling apart. I'm sorry, you know? So old folks in my age bracket, I don't really hang around with them so much because all they do is freaking complain. Things aren't like they used to. Okay, closed mind. I got a closed mind on some subjects, but I look at the kids, the way kids are adapting technology. I mean, very young children, 3, 4 years old, using computers. So Short term, a little bit pessimistic. Robots taking all those jobs, going to be a problem. But long run, I'm very, very optimistic. So I'm optimistic, and I'm losing my voice, and I'm lagging. My picture's lagging. I'm guessing this is a good time to end the Hangout. How do you think, Jani?
Also, there's that makers movement. Young kids are building their own stuff.
Yes, and I know you on it. You've got some sci-fi movies you want to go see. I see every once in a while on Facebook you post a little ticket you bought from those sci-fi movies. And hope you enjoyed your birthday and had lots of birthday cake, etc. And I hope you have many, many more of them. And I certainly plan to have many more. And with the science, I might make it to 100. I'm going to end the broadcast. Good night. Anybody who's...
Perhaps 1,000.
I don't know about 1,000, but I'll tell you what. I think you have an excellent chance. People in your age bracket in the 30s have an excellent chance of living to at least 100. And our friend Kyle, I think he has an excellent chance of getting to 120 or so. So on that positive note, as I say, I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to have to end the broadcast. Gonna go have some hot tea, and I don't know what else. I will see you next week. Hopefully we can get two viewers. Hello, 2 viewers. Don't know who you are. Hopefully, you can go back. Well, one of them disappeared, and they came back, and they disappeared, and they came back. I don't know. This will be on YouTube, so you can watch the old man talking. And thank you again, Johnny. That was a very interesting story you posted. So I will see you guys next